Thanks for joining me today. I've got some great news and some prayer requests that I want to bring before you, my prayer warriors, our partners in prayer, and our financial partners who have made such a big difference in our lives and in our ministry in the Philippines, Thailand, and Cambodia. But if you could just take a minute. If you could just take a minute right now and hit pause and just pray. After I'm done giving you this request, just spend a minute in prayer for our churches in the Philippines. One of the things that we're facing right now is we've gone back to an enhanced community quarantine. We call it ECQ, which means we're basically back in full lockdown again. And it's very much limited the mobility of our city and impacted our church, especially coming up on a very important weekend in our ministry. And so if you'll just hit the pause button and pray for every single one of our church plants or church planners who are dealing and going through this time of creative ministry, I like to call it, and doing that. And if you'll partner with me in prayer, that would mean a lot to me. The second thing that I want to tell you about is a very powerful tool, and it's a tool that we've been using for years. It's our one-on-one discipleship and our small group ministries. We call them community groups. And what has been happening is, and I'll give you an example, is one of our church plants. Years ago, we started this church and help this church continue to grow. And last year in 2020, we recognized a new pastor, Pastor Renz Lemkin, and he started with this new church, and he stepped in a leadership role and really just took the ball and went running with it right away. And he was facing a lot of what all of our churches are facing, is that most of our country in the Philippines is unbanked. About 75% of our entire country is unbanked. And so he was dealing with the struggles of growth financially, dealing with the struggles of growth because people weren't coming to church because we have a very limited amount of people that are allowed into our facilities. And so he just started praying and really focused in on our priorities, which is our one-on-one discipleship, our small group ministries, and then into our weekend celebration service. And so earlier in January, I sat with him and some of his team, and I said, hey, let's talk about what God is doing in your church, and let's set some goals. Despite or in spite of the quarantine that we're facing, what are some things that you think God can do and will do through your church? And he said, well, Pastor Luke, I think really that we can be adding 10 new groups to our church, brand new groups, either multiplying of existing groups or starting new ones. Every quarter we can add 10 new groups, so 40 new groups this year. And I was like, wow, that's a pretty big goal, but I believe God can really do that. He said, right about 20 groups right now. Well, I just talked with him the other day, and sure enough, he fulfilled his first goal of reaching 10 new groups in this first quarter, and really allowed his church to see some significant growth, because through that you see spiritual growth, you see numeric growth, you see some high intensity relationships being built and developed, and true friendships really being formed. And one thing that really struck me, and this is something I can't wait to tell you about, is he said every single one of his groups, as they set their own goals on when they're going to multiply and when they're going to continue to grow, he said every single one of our group has an evangelistic goal as well, where they want to share the gospel with so many people throughout the year, and then in 1 year multiply and allow that group to continue to reach more and more people in their community. And he told me this just last week. He said, Pastor Luke, this has been a great quarter. He said, we haven't been able to do all of our usual church-style programs. He said, but we've been focusing on discipleship, focusing on our small group, our C group ministry, and through this, he said, just in our small groups, we've shared the gospel with over 500 people. He said groups will take time and they will meet up and they'll go into their community where their group is already meeting and share the gospel with people in their neighborhood. He said we've had over 500 people make professions of faith. He said, and the follow-up is already there. I mean, that group knows that community. Those people live in that community. They're living and serving the Lord in community through their small group ministry. He said we've seen new disciples already starting as well. And so he's so excited about what God is going to continue to do. And he said, it's not about all the different programs. It's really about sharing the gospel, one-on-one discipleship, and plugging them into a great friendship ministry through our community groups, and really bridging the gap between what happens on the weekend celebration service and what happens in the real life of people in their homes, at work, and in school. And so I got that great thing I wanted to tell you was that God continues to move, specifically with Pastor Renz's church at one of our worship centers in the Philippines. And God is going to continue to move. So pray with me as we focus and really try to overcome the enhanced community quarantine that we're facing in the Philippines, and as well as for Pastor Renz and his church as they continue to expand and grow. And I believe that the future is bright and that God has great and exciting things ahead. Thanks so much for praying. Thank you so much for all of you who are partners with us financially. Thank you for giving faithfully to your church and supporting missions. God is doing some great things, and you have a big part in it, and I can't thank you enough. God bless you.